Hi students, welcome to lesson number 9, Caste and Class in Indian Villages. The fact is that rural India has little social stratification. It is after independence and after the implementation of 5-year plans that there has emerged a striking social differentiation in Indian villages. The Indian agriculture has become capitalistic, the number of marginal peasants has increased. Rural people have come within the network of audiovisual development. The process of modernization, development in agriculture technology has changed the face of rural society. The mobility and the migration which had become the main characteristics of villages have created social stratification, which is historical. The village which remained isolated from the urban mainstream has now developed nexus with the urban community. The similar is the emergence of class in rural India. In this lesson, we are going to study the situation of caste and class in rural India, which comes under the domain of rural stratification. Stratification is ranking of people in a society. Ranking is made on certain criteria include power, status and prestige. The rural stratification is based on the mode of production, that is the owners of the land, the types of peasants, the role of technology in production, surplus for market and circulation of laborers. Stratification from the Weberian point of view accepts class, status, power as basic determinants of stratification or ranking. Social stratification is very simple term that means inequality and inequality in class, status and power or mode of production is found in all societies. Stratification found in all the societies, mechanical and organic. Rural stratification is not much complicated compared to urban stratification. It is possible that in some societies the pace of stratification is faster in comparison to other societies, but there is certainly some pattern of stratification in all the societies. The objectives of the lesson are to understand the basis for rural social stratification and to study the caste in rural India, to know the class system in rural India. Let us start with the forms of social stratification. There are 4 basic social stratifications. They are the slavery, caste, estate and class. Slavery is an extreme form of inequality in which some individuals are literally owned by others as their property. And the caste system is extremely elaborate and varies in its structure from area to area. It does not constitute one system, but a loosely connected diversity of varying beliefs and cultural practices, though certain principles are shared by all the caste members. The estate are the feudal clusters with varying obligations and rights towards each other. Estates have developed both in Europe, United States and Asia. In India, Jagirdars and Zamindars were the traditional estate holders. With the abolition of the systems, these groups did not exist. In rural society, they are big peasants and occupy positions of the power in PRIs and legislatures. They constitute a considerable rank in both rural and urban stratification. The class systems are more fluid than the other types of stratification. Classes are not established by legal or religious provisions, nor is inherited either by legally or by custom. Class is large scale grouping of people which share common economic resources which influence the types of lifestyle they are able to lead. Let us start with rural social stratification. Social stratification in Indian rural society has its pattern which is very specific to it only. In rural society, an individual is normally identified with his village. An Indian is identified by his caste, language and village. Viewed from this perspective, the village social stratification is synonymous with village caste. Caste, the chief identification mark of a person in rural society. Caste in rural society. Let us look into the caste. The caste is a major form of stratification as defined by sociologists. There is a general understanding that caste and class are polar opposites. It is also understood that caste is rural phenomena, while class is found in urban communities. But in fact, there are classes in caste and there are caste in urban communities. Caste is not regimental, but it is always changing, but it is essentially characteristics continues to remain. The changes are operational only and they make a difference of degree only. Caste system has greater operational or functional role in the village compared to cities. According to 𝗂𝗑𝗪𝗓, caste is a cultural phenomena. Further, the concept of caste, besides being a cultural phenomena, caste is also a structural phenomena. Caste as a structural phenomena, consider it as a system of social organization and institutionalized system of interaction among hierarchically ranked hereditary groups for marriage, occupation, economic, division of labor, enforcement of cultural norms and values by case, bodies and performance of rituals based on principles of purity and pollution. The caste endogamy, caste occupations and hierarchy are the structural properties of caste and have direct bearing on social stratification. The cultural aspects are value based. The caste system in rural India has little specificity, which makes a caste a particularistic in rural societies. Let us now discuss about the specificities of caste in rural society. Caste has a functional role in maintaining the village social system. Some of the special functions performed by the caste in villages are as follows. The individual life cycle, which passes through birth, betrothal, marriage and death. On all these occasions, caste has a definite role. A Brahmin presence is obligatory to officiate at the fulfillment of rituals on major phases of life. In Indian village, caste specialists are essential functionaries. The endogamy and exogamy. One cannot marry within his sister, nor can he marry with any of his agnates. Marriage with the gotra or clan is prohibited. The rule of exogamy is strictly observed in village society. Sometimes there is practice of village exogamy. The occupational interdependence. Division of labor is based on caste system, but earlier village economy was dependent on the 𝗪𝗠𝗏 system. Each caste had its occupational specialization. These castes gave their services to their 𝗪𝗠𝗏s on exchange basis, but on the whole the caste economy promotes occupational interdependence and among different castes in a village. The caste associations. Rural society has got its caste associations. The caste association have become stronger in village India today, but at the same time rural India, many of the political decisions are made by caste associations, and the caste is mirror of rural society. A village is identified in a region in terms of its power through its caste settlement. According to 𝗧𝗏 𝗚𝗏 talks about a Rajput village which wield power, they maintain the village system. Likewise, we have Jat villages, the Brahmin villages and so on. In such villages, other castes are also found, but they are only the subordinate caste. In such situation, the structure of a village is known by the caste groups inhabiting it. It is because of his situation we call caste as the mirror of a village. The dominant caste is, this is a caste which has a numerical strength in the village, its own major portion of a village land and takes major decisions which maintain the village system. It is the dominant caste which rules over the village. The concept of dominant caste clearly shows that there are few castes which exercise their hold on the village. According to M. N. Srinivas has given the concept of dominant caste. According to 𝗪𝗏𝗏, despite changes in village, the dominant caste occupy a pivotal status in rural society. And the hierarchical relations are, in a village, the social interactions are guided by the caste status. It is pyramid of hierarchy. It is a pyramid of hierarchy where at the top Brahmin followed by Rajput, etc. A.R. Desai has observed that caste has fixed the psychology of various social groups and has evolved graded levels of social distance and superiority. The relationships that the social structure looks like a hierarchic pyramid. The caste and the economic life. It is the caste which determines the economic life of the people. Despite diversification in the village economy, the traditional occupations determined the wealth status of the people. The caste has a role in production. The production relations in any part of the country, the habitation pattern of the village is determined by the specific caste clusters. Belongingness to a caste not only determines the pattern of settlement, but also the type of house a person would build. And the mobility a person or clusters, economic mobility is determined by the caste. The change in a village is relative to the village caste. Some castes have given away their traditional occupations, while at the same time there are castes that are very rigidly follow their traditional occupations. Caste and joint family. It is the case, the structure which determines the nature of family or joint or nuclear. In the village, it is observed that in India, the caste in the rural society is a cluster of joint families. Consequently, the caste molds the nature of the life of the members of family. Thus, it is the caste character which determines to a great extent the nature of the rural society. Let us look into the changes in rural caste system. The rural stratification, which is dominated by caste, is changing rapidly. Caste is assuming a new role in rural India. This is the new form or avatar caste. Significant changes have taken place over the past years. These changes are conceptualized into two forces. One is the structural changes and the peripheral changes. The structural changes have far-reaching impact on the rural caste system. These changes are the abolition of zamindari and jagirdari systems and introduction of Panchayati Raj, adult franchise, the cooperatives, etc. The peripheral changes comprise establishment of modern schools, construction of roads, public health centers, communication and links and migration. Now, let us study the major structural and peripheral changes influencing the rural caste system. Let us observe what is modernization and Sanskritization. Modernization is a complex term. It includes education, politics, power, style of life and large number of other aspects of life. Here, the castes are which have discarded traditional occupations because they were considered impure or unclean or lower because of the stigma about polluting nature of their traditional occupations. The village caste system has received phenomenal change in its structure due to the process of Sanskritization. The change brought by this process is positional change. In this change, there is horizontal mobility, and in the caste structure, Sanskritization as a process of social change or mobility was introduced by M.N. Srinivas in 60s. It is a social change within the caste system. It is mere imitation of the customs and practices of the higher caste by the lower caste. The caste which Sanskritize their pantheon and rituals think that their statuses are lower in social hierarchy because of the customs, practices and occupations they carry on. These castes try to improve their social status by rejecting some of their traditional styles of life and by imitating the cultural styles of the upper caste. Modernization has affected the occupational structure of village caste. The Barbers have now begun to suffix their name with Sharma. All these occupational changes indicate that Sanskritization has brought changes in the rural caste system. The de-Sanskritization. Another change observed in the rural caste is working of the process de-Sanskritization. According to K.L. Sharma, some of the higher castes are giving up their Sanskritic values in order to have interaction with the lower caste. The Rajputs now do not hesitate to touch the untouchables. Occasionally, they would not mind to share smoking with the lower caste. This kind of change is characterized as de-Sanskritization. The concept of purity and pollution has undergone drastic change with the passage of time. People of different castes mix freely in public place, workplace, offices and in educational institutions. The values of achievement, the national value of democracy, socialism and secularism has influenced the importance of rituals in the rural life. The value of achievement orientation is being accepted by the higher caste. Because of this, the traditional rules of food and water taboos are very openly violated. Commensality has become a common thing on occasions of marriage and other celebrations. One can find the lower caste mixing with the higher caste in political meetings. Change from a closed system to open system. Caste is changing from a closed to an open system. This implies that mobility has then place within the caste system. Sensitization has simplified then the process of mobility to take place within the caste system. Further, the change of ideology, values, institutions and technology of a non-Western society as a result of cultural contact with the Western society for a long time. Education is one of the important determinants of status in the present day rural community. The higher caste have taken up or rather cornered most of the facilities of higher education. This gave them the new jobs, the opportunities for the rural higher caste. Proletarianism. In the process of social change and particularly the opportunities of development given to the lower caste, the higher caste find their status withdrawal. Such a kind of process has reduced the status of higher caste to that of proletariat. Hostility and tension. A new kind of change is observed among the lower caste of villages according to 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗍. There is an awakening among the subjugated people of the society. The lower caste have emerged with the arms in hand as a powerful segment of the society to rise against the upper caste. People have ideas now who they are and what they owe themselves. The process quickened with the economic development that came after independence. The hegemony of the higher caste is that the higher caste who own the large portions of the land now have been reduced to the smaller portions of the land. The lower caste are fast reduced to the status of the marginal agricultural caste. According to Kolenda, there is social mobility within the caste, but not the mobility in the caste system. The shift in the sources of power says that in the past the status of the power, the person was overwhelmingly determined by the size of the land he owned by him. The larger the size of the land owned by a person, higher the status was. Today, new sources of status in the village have emerged. These status have their origin in the position of the power, a political power. A position in the government service gives status to a person, also prestige and power. A position in assembly or parliament gives status to a man. Thus, the power structure associated with different castes has undergone major changes. Change in power and domination says that people had the idea that the law of karma determines the caste in which a man is born. The lower caste looks upon their higher caste status as something for which they are responsible for by their own acts in the past lives. Each member used to perform the caste role, and it was believed that violation of the caste discipline was a sin. This type of attitude is not found nowadays. There is claim for equal right and equal opportunities. Change in intercaste relations as observed, the traditional intercaste relations involved prescribed and clear-cut rights, obligations, authorities and subordination. But now, the lower caste members are not obliged to carry out the orders of the members of the higher caste, and they hesitate to perform forced labor for upper caste. They even resist to carry on their traditionally prescribed occupations such as removing dead animals, beating of drums at the festival of good village gods, and removing of leaf plates on which people belonging to a caste dine. As a result, the natural rights and obligations have crumbled down. The new horizons of the caste says that traditionally the caste boundaries were limited to a village or to a cluster of villages. With the administrative and regional affiliations, the caste and kin have got wider networks spread over to the state or region. The contemporary changes provide the basis for vertical unity in India on the basis of the caste. Let us look into the rural class system. Some social scientists argue that caste and class are not polar opposites. There is a continuum between the two. There is class in caste. The Kshatriya is a caste, but there are classes of Kshatriya, poor and rich. Both caste and class are forms of stratification are found in rural society. According to 𝗪𝗡𝗏, in West Bengal, an agricultural caste is moving towards the formation of a class, but the change from the caste to class is amorphous, which means that the form of class which is emerging among the jotedars is not of any definite shape or structure of a class. In India, the traditional system of inequalities based on caste is being replaced by a class system in rural areas. It is clear that caste is declining in India's villages. Class is replacing caste, but the form of class which is emerging has not taken a proper shape of class. Pauline Kolenda, who debates by saying that village caste system is changing to village class system, Kolenda revealed that there are a variety of ways through which people lose their land. Such castes sold their land to pay debt, contesting elections, etc. The class which is emerging is not a rich class, but a middle class. The village class system does not enrich a man to become a rich class because there are opportunities outside the village to amass money. The factors for the transformation of caste into class in rural society are the government policy, that is the Green Revolution, White Revolution, irrigation and electric supply have gone mostly in favor of the big farmers, but in fact the benefits of development programs have been largely cornered by the big landowners. The advance of a capitalist mode of agricultural production has in essence been pushed through by a class of large and middle farmers, originating from intermediate caste, who have gradually gained dominance in recent decades. The working classes have derived much less profit from the extension of employment which has accompanied this transformation. The southern and western parts of India, the intermediate caste have become middle classes. The process of social transformation is mainly due to the role of state and the policy of rural development. The correlation between caste and class. Caste and class are a mixed phenomenon in Indian rural society. The zamindars and the jagirdars have come as capitalist peasants. The former higher caste have become today higher classes. The intermediate classes have become classes. The former higher caste have become higher classes. The difference is that caste as a feudal organization and its change into class is capitalistic. The dominant caste replaced by the concept of dominant caste lost much of its relevance today. The big landowners have migrated to urban and industrial communities, have taken to new sources of income or have been deprived of land due to sealing legislations. The members of the weaker sections have got new power from democratic institutions. The empowerment of weaker sections has brought these sections in competition with the former power elites. Caste, land and politics make class. The caste is a system of hierarchy related to the land and land politics. The idea of a class is also inherent in a class. In the changing scene, the relationship of caste hierarchy, the notion of purity and pollution in relation to land owned by a particular caste and its power structure is analyzed. When the land and power undergo change, resultantly the caste structure also witnesses changes, and these changes relate to class. In the contemporary competing demands of each caste group, the caste assumes the role of a class. Thus, political and economic considerations turn a caste into a class. Capitalist mode of production, caste into class transformation. The Green Revolution, coupled with the introduction of new technology, have revolutionized the mode of production in agriculture. Advanced technology, new yielding varieties and chemical manure can be fruitfully employed by big farmers who have capacity to invest in agricultural production. This innovation resulted the emergence of the rural caste system into rural class system. According to 𝗂𝗍, the capitalist mode of production in agriculture has not only polarized the rural class structure in terms of rich and the poor, the dominant and the weak, the upper and the lower segments of the society. The new emerging agricultural classes in rural India. New agricultural classes have brought out a new classification of agricultural caste. In the field of agricultural production or in peasantry, there are some classes. These classes are agricultural classes. Differences in the size of land holdings have created diverse agricultural classes in rural society. The classification of agricultural classes is as follows: the big farmers, the small farmers, the marginal farmers and the landless labourers. The caste and the class. There are several dimensions of a social theme or a social issue. In no period of history, caste has been only cultural or structural. It involves power and economy. In hierarchy, there have been Brahmins who have lived a life of a proletariat. Thus, historically, it is said that caste includes the attributes of a class also, that is, the power and economic status. Now, caste, class are power not differentiated in any scheme of stratification in rural India. Caste, class and power are the three inseparable dimensions of stratification. There is a close link between here the caste, class and the power. It would be right to say that the rural stratification is changing. In India, the caste is becoming weaker due to the influence of factors as industrialization, increase in the means of transportation, popularity of English education, political and social awakening, the democratic government and the laws abolishing untouchability, etc. On the other basis of the occupation, the post capacity, etc. are being established. Due to an increase in the desire for more, the influence of materialistic tendencies, superiority or inferiority is now being on wealth and social power rather than on caste. Thus, the caste consciousness is being replaced by class consciousness. In view of the changes, it is believed that the caste system will take on the form of a class system. Thus, to conclude, it is said that the caste has a definite role in the structure and functioning of rural society. In contemporary India, many changes have come in the caste system. The age-old rural caste is changing fast. The changes are from two forces, structural and peripheral. The modernization has affected the occupational structure of the village caste. The caste consciousness is being replaced by class consciousness. It is said that the caste includes class attributes.